Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Totten, the Director of Marketing at Wisdom Window, and I am so excited today to be interviewing Jeanie Cisco Meth. Hi, Jeanie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Good. Well, Jeanie and I have been going back and forth trying to schedule this interview for a couple of months now, and so I'm really excited that the day is finally here. Jeanie is very skilled when it comes to teaching people how to bully-proof themselves. And so the topic today is bully-proofing you. And she has some powerful tips that she's going to share with us. And we're going to shake things up a little bit. I'm going to interview her. She also is going to use her flip chart and map some things out for us. So this is going to be really fun.
Yes.
And she's going to teach us some powerful tips of things that we can do every day in order to make sure that we are in a position to prevent ourselves from being bullied. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Okay, we are going to start off with your story because I've been really interested in this. I've read your bio a couple of times, but I want to hear it from you.
Okay.
So tell us your story and how you got involved in the journey of helping people with bully proofing.
Okay, thank you. When I was young, I was bullied. I think like everybody is. Everybody gets bullied. And it was difficult for me. Then, because I had an incredible teacher, I decided I wanted to be a teacher and help others. And from there, I became a high school teacher. And
what subject?
I taught at an alternative high.
Okay.
So it was many different subjects.
Gotcha. Okay.
I taught over 12 subjects, but what I was certified in was driver's ed, health, PE, intro to health sciences, and an EMS class. Those were my certifications.
Awesome.
And I realized fairly quickly in my high school career as a teacher that everyone is bullied. Bullying is a global problem, but the solution is individual. And so I set about creating a program that could help people, that they could use daily, as you were saying, that when they went to school, they were part of the 75% that said they didn't get bullied, instead of part of the 25% that says they do. Because everybody gets bullied. Somebody tries to intimidate somebody, every day almost. Yeah. And it intrigued me why 1 out of 4 says they were bullied and it was horrible and the trauma, but then the 3 out of 4 said they never even got bullied. When I saw it in the hallway and in the schools, and so I started studying those. I did a lot of research, a lot of planning, and I implemented a program in my school to help people, because like I said, it's a global problem, but it's an individual solution.
And that makes a lot of sense. My son, he's 11 now, but when he was 7 and 8, so it was first grade and second grade, he was bullied. And it was to the point where he would call me. Now, here's what's interesting. Either he was bullied or so many of his friends were that he internalized it. He felt like he was being bullied because his friends were. But he would call me every single day from school and say, "Mom, my stomach hurts. Mom, my stomach hurts. Can you come pick me up?" And finally, I pulled him out and I homeschool my 2 children now. But he has developed from that such a huge fear that anytime I say, and every year I say, do we want to go back to school? What do we want to do? And every year he says no. He's terrified. And that happened when he was, 8, 9 years old. But he's and the funny thing is we go to so many different homeschool groups and programs that he's around kids all the time and he's fine. But in his mind, he has developed a stigma against school, like traditional public school, because of that experience. And so as we've just kind of worked with it and dealt with it, what's interesting is his own bullying tendencies that have come out that I realized were our reactions, and
they are.
And that we've had to work with.
When people, there's 2 sides to the bullying coin. One is the bully and one is the victim, the bullied, and both react from their reptilian brain, their brain stem. It's a reaction. And so it's survival mode. And survival mode, first of all, is a freeze, and then it's fight or flight. I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight before. And that's what happens in our mind, is when somebody tries to intimidate or overpower us, we immediately freeze, and then we decide, are we going to run away or are we going to fight? Well, in society, if you fight, that's wrong. Sometimes, people do. Boys then men are more likely to act out than women are. But once you start internalizing that and you start going through it, you start perpetuating that survival mode, and it's constantly there, and so you just lash out. And so my daughter had a very similar experience in grade school, and I noticed it about the third day when she would call me at the exact same time. And so the third day I said, Erin, what's going on at school? Well, we have recess. And so she was being bullied by a fellow classmate on the recess field. And we were able to, that's really where I started developing my program, was working with my own children, and then to be able to take it into the school and see it help more and more people. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I do the trainings and things that I do to help as many as we can.
So, going back into my junior high records, the people that bullied me the most, I realized, well, first of all, I realized that as adults, they're probably very different. And quite truthfully, thank heavens for Facebook, because I'm now friends with them and realize that they're actually functioning adults and that they've gotten over, they worked through that. But one particular friend that I was talking to, that literally it was something where my mom and I both kind of held this grudge. She held her up as the poster child for the person who made my life miserable. And it was only in the past few years that I've been like, oh, okay, she probably isn't like that anymore, Anyway, but when I kind of joked with her about something once, and I can't remember the exact context, she said, I'm so sorry. I had older siblings and I was exposed to way more than I should have been. And all of a sudden a light bulb went on, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, hang on. Okay, bullies are bullied, and they're just turning around, and because they don't know what else to do with it, with that anger. So what have you found? You've taught this in schools, you've written a book, you've worked with people all over. What is like the number one thing that you have found that is the instigator for this? And the number one thing that you've found, I know these are two questions, but the number one thing that you found that helps people to overcome it the fastest?
Okay. The number one cause of bullying is fear. The bully is living in fear, either from someone at home, or from a situation at home, or from someone else bullying them. And then the victim is living in fear as well.
Right.
And so when you live in that constant fear, you don't process very well. When emotion is high, intelligence is low. Blair Singer taught me that. And if you can learn to control the emotion or talk yourself through the emotion, then your intelligence comes back up. Has somebody ever said anything to you, and the moment you're like, oh my goodness, how could they say that to me? And then later you have 10, 15 things you could have said back, but in the moment you couldn't think of it,
just stunned.
because you're stunned. You're in that freeze, fight, or flight. And so when you bring that emotion back down, the intelligence comes back up. And so part of my training is teaching you how to deal appropriately with fear, and then process and move through the fear. So that's the answer to the first one. The number one problem is fear. People operating out of fear. And we're bombarded by it everywhere, aren't we? Our movies, our news, I mean, it's everywhere. And then the second part was, what can a person do? First of all, you need to believe in yourself. You need to know that you're powerful, that you are valuable, that you're needed, that you have a purpose. And in living in fear, you cannot live your purpose. And when you decide, or when you figure out what your purpose is, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you. When I was very young, I was told I would never make it through elementary school, let alone into high school. And I went on to college, and now I've written a book. And I remember sitting in the classroom for parent-teacher conferences with my parents and the teachers saying, oh, she'll never make it. She has too many learning disabilities. I was legally blind. I couldn't speak very well at all. I have dyslexia, visual as well as auditory. So people would say things to me, would get all jumbled up. And so school was a huge struggle for me.
Yeah.
And I was a target. I was tall, I was dorky.
We all were.
Weren't we?
We all
We
were.
all
Yeah.
are. We all are.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that I could use the skill set that I had taught myself to get through school to help others, that's when I started going, wait a minute, I have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what I look like. It doesn't matter what I sound like. I'm human. But I make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a purpose. And when I live in that purpose, I love my
really
life.
powerful.
Very powerful.
And it's funny how that extends into adulthood. You know, we carry those insecurities and fears from our childhood into adulthood. I was at an event, and what was funny is a woman came up to me and she didn't know me at all. She was just, she kind of was invasive in talking with me. And I was recently diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. So other people's energy, I have to kind of protect myself, because I'm a hugger, I'm outgoing,
Right.
I'm friendly, and I am, very chatty. But I've realized that certain personalities, and hers in particular at that time, was literally shutting me down. And she came at me and said, and it was so strange, this literally, I don't even remember her name. And she said, you would be so much more effective, like in your career and speaking from the stage, which I don't do. So that was kind of weird. I was like, oh, but speaking from the stage and doing all these things, if you just lost weight. And I'm like, really? Really? Is that okay? Do we do that as adults? But that's bullying, it's bullying. It's taking her agenda. And I sat there and I was like, her fear, her issue, her
Right.
issue, because it was so like, where is this coming from? And and I really had to use the skills that I have now to be like, that was not towards me.
Right.
That was her own stuff
It
being
is.
projected onto me. And because I was in a vulnerable state and I'm not very good at, kind of putting up emotional barriers right now, it was so directed at me,
Right.
So it was really an interesting experience, and to be able to overcome it so fast and be like, okay, I'm going to go and detox you in an Epsom salt bath or something like that, so I was able to let it go. But that was a huge insecurity for me when I was younger, and I was like, that's why everybody bullies me, because I'm fat. That's my,
which is your young self projecting into your future self. See, these things happen when we're young, right?
Yeah.
And our little 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old mind learns how to deal with it. The problem is we take that 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old mind into the future and continue to deal with it.
And create those beliefs around it.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, but what you did was you took the skills that you had learned, the tools you had learned, awareness, and you applied them, and you were able to deal with it. That's what the program's all about.
Awesome.
Tools, skills that you can use.
All right. Well, do you want to share some of those tools with us?
To.
Okay, great. So we're going to kind of adjust a little bit, because Jeanie, you're like 6 feet tall, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I have heels on too.
Sweet. I'm so jealous. Well, I actually was 5'4" my entire life, and then my cousin and I went back to back at Christmas.
Yes.
And we're the same height. She said, I'm 5'5", and I said, I'm 5'4". No,
so you're 5'5".
I grew an inch. Yay! My whole life had been a lie about my height, but I've gotten over it. So we're going to adjust a little bit, and Jeanie is going to go into some training for us. And so we hope you enjoy that. And then we're going to come back and we'll just kind of process and wrap things up.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. So I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. And you are ready to roll. Perfect.
So the first thing, like we were talking before, is awareness. You have to be aware of what's going on and your surroundings. And when you're aware, then you can act appropriately. The other thing that you need is you need to make a decision. Once you make a decision about what you want to do, then you need to take action. And these are the main things My board's a little bit flimsy here today, but it's going to work just fine. So the first step in change is awareness of your situation. So you become aware, just like Heidi, you were saying earlier about how this person said something to me, it hurt me, and so you became aware of what was going on. Or maybe in the past, you would have just taken that on, you would have felt bad, you would have started this downward spiral. But you become aware that, hey, wait a minute, this is not how I want to feel. I want to feel better about myself. That's the decision part. So I'm aware there's a problem, then I make a decision that I want to do something about it, then I take action. So what you have to do is you have to improve your self-esteem, and you have to believe that you are valuable and that you are needed in this time and space. I came up with a mantra for my daughter and for a lot of my clients that use it, and it is, I am valuable, I am loved, and I am needed in this time and space. And if every person could remember that, their life would go smoother, more elegantly, because you are needed, you are valuable in this time, and you have to do it. When they were first training me to be a teacher, they would tell me, don't tell your students that they're doing something wrong, because you don't want to hurt their self-esteem. Well, I learned that the only way that I have impact on someone's self-esteem is if, first of all, is if they like me. They have to like me. That's the very first criteria for me to impact someone. The other criteria is that they have to believe what I say. This is powerful. And so as I started teaching students and I started to realize that I had no effect on some students and other students would believe anything I said, that's where this came from. If they liked me as a teacher and they believed what I was saying, I impacted them tremendously. Now, if you take this into bullying, the problem comes in when children or people allow people they don't even like to dictate who they are. Why do we do that? It's a huge question for me. Why do people, I guarantee you, that for every person that says you're fat or you're ugly or you're tall or you're stupid or whatever, there are just as many people telling you that you're smart and you're beautiful and they love you and you're incredible. But then the other part is, what do you believe? And if you believe you're beautiful and you're smart and you're intelligent and you're needed, then this all wraps up into your self-esteem. Bullying, remember I talked about that 1 out of 4 that is affected by bullying, and some of them affected so much that they do horrendous things. They allow other people to dictate who they are. They don't know who they are. And so they take other people's comments and they start to believe them. And as you become aware, right, I'm aware that I have a problem. I'm aware that I'm getting bullied. So now I make a decision to do something about it. And the action that I'm going to take is every morning I'm going to get up and I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to believe that I have a purpose. I'm going to believe that there's a reason and that I am loved. It always amazed me that some parents, their children knew that they were loved, and other parents, their kids never believed they were loved. Mm-hmm. And I would interview the parents and I would talk to the parents. The parents were doing pretty much the same thing. What was the difference? The difference was that the child had made the decision that their parents didn't love them. How do you overcome that decision? You, as an outside individual, cannot. The person has to do it. So remember I said bullying is a global problem, but the solution is individual? Mm-hmm. It starts with a belief in yourself. That awareness, that decision of, I believe in myself, I'm valuable, I'm needed. And then you take action. You do things that empower you. if you made the decision to like yourself, then you have to have internal dialogue that goes along with that. The problem is so many people get up and somebody will say, you know, a negative comment to you. And you go, oh, that's right, that's true, and they immediately drag down. But if somebody says something, you're so stupid, and you immediately say, thank you for sharing, that's your opinion. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. And it's okay, it's their opinion. You decide who you are. Other people just validate it. And I think that's one of the most important lessons. You decide. And I was so tired of hearing people about committing suicide, the school shootings. You know, as a teacher, I became a teacher to help people. And then we have this horrible problem in our schools where kids are taking other kids' lives, and it just has to stop. It has to stop. And so that's why I went from the classroom to the platform, so I could reach more people. And so if you want to truly bully-proof yourself, make the decision to like yourself. Make the decision to love yourself. And then do things, take action that helps you love yourself. Dress up. Sometimes, a while back, I was having a really bad day. You know, we all have our bad days. Me, I know I teach this. I teach it for a reason, so I don't forget it. I was having a bad day, and I was putting on my painter jeans. We have real estate, and I'd been working all week up turning a property, so I'd been wearing painty, dirty clothes all day. But I wasn't. And I got up and I just started putting them on, and I went, wait a minute. I love myself today, and I'm going to dress up. And it was amazing how that little action could change, because then I went to Costco later in the day, and a lady there, I just love her, name's Jill. She says, Jeanie, you look so gorgeous today. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. So as you make the decision to love yourself, and then you start to look for that validation out there, because I guarantee you it's there. You just have to become aware of it and listen to it. Block the negative and accept the positive. They're both there. Just what are you looking for?
Awesome. So one thing that stood out a lot with me is this, because when I was bullied, it came from the most popular girls in school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now, as you know, my best friend turned 42 last night, and I'm 6 months older. So we're calling ourselves like Heidi 4.2 instead of 42. Yeah. So my 4.2 mind can look at this and say, wow, they were fighting to be popular. Yeah. You know, it was that pecking order that happens so often with girls. Right. And this was junior high. It wasn't even high school. I didn't have the problems in high school that I did in junior high. But realizing this, and that in their mind, they were more likable by putting other people down, which is right. so common at that age. It's how do I kind of disrupt people's patterns and get their attention and things like that. And so then they go for the most vulnerable people, right? And so looking at this now and being friends on Facebook with all of the people that you know, that I would have considered, and that I spent a lot of my life considering the bullies. You know, I look at this and I think, oh, it's that they just were looking for people to like them, and they thought that that's what, and they believed that if they behaved that way, that more people would like them, you know? And so they created a false belief around their own behavior, because they did get validated, because people laughed.
People would laugh.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly what happens. The first time someone bullies, if no one laughs, they never bully again.
Yeah.
And so it's this,
the validation.
Yeah. And junior high is usually the worst, because it's the time when people are moving from adolescence into the teen years, into adulthood, and you're trying to find yourself, and you're searching for yourself. And what those girls were doing is called leveling. And adults do it too. It's just not as a parent. And I'm almost 48, so we're okay.
You're 4.8?
No, I'm 48. I'll be 48 in January. I'm 47 right now. But I decided a long time ago that age is just a number of experience that I have. However old I am in my heart. And in my heart, I'm 25. And I And it's because I believe and I'm living my life purpose. But what happens is we recently moved and we have just an incredible home. We used to live out in Eagle Mountain, and I wanted my son to play for American Fork High School basketball. He's 6'9".
Oh,
yeah.
So that's a good height for basketball.
It is.
Yeah.
And so he was blessed with a basketball body, which I'm glad because I love basketball. And so we moved into Cedar Hills, and I love Cedar Hills. But one of my friends came and saw our home, and I love it. And she said, well, you know, I don't like the color. And I was like, oh, interesting. But what that is I moved out of her comfort zone. And so by me moving out of her comfort zone, she had to bring me back down.
Right.
And that's what people do all the time. We have our comfort zone, we're within it, we're doing our day-to-day business, and then we hit the edge of it. I remember the first time I ever walked into a gorgeous hotel. I was at a conference and I walked in, I was like, I don't belong here. I grew up on a dairy farm, you know, with weeds in my hair and barefoot. And so when I walked in and there's marble and chandelier, I'm like, whoa, I don't belong here. That's comfort zone. And so as you bring more people and more experiences into your life, your comfort zone grows. And so as people move past that, it's okay with you because your comfort zone is so big. Right. The problem is so many people have just this tiny little comfort zone. And if you move out of it, you start changing. You know, you start saying, you know, I do love myself. I do believe in myself. And the ripple effects of that are drug use is no more. You dress differently. You act differently. You're happier. And all those people that used to fit in your comfort zone because they were just like you don't fit anymore.
I have a good friend who says, new level, new devil. So when you're up leveling in your life, you're going to run into a new battle, you know, and that if you're ready to face that and just say, new level, new level. And actually her other quote is, are you willing to be uncomfortable to get the results that you want? Yes. You know, her name's Tiffany Peterson. I just have to give that shout out because I just quoted her twice. But those are really, I mean, I have that running in my head all the day, or you know, all day long. I'm like, am I willing to be uncomfortable? Okay, step out of that comfort zone because otherwise, you know, you're safe. That's where the fear comes in, right? Like we talked about earlier. So even whether you're in junior high or whether you're in high school or whether you're 42 or 47, it doesn't matter. You still have those fears come up, and it's how you face them and the decision about what you're going to do with that fear. Yeah. What am I going to do with the fear?
So in my book, I spend a whole chapter on stretching your comfort zone and then the actions that you take to do it. And we were getting ready to go to Hawaii. Always wanted to go to Hawaii. We planned a family trip when my daughter graduated from high school to go to Hawaii. Saved our money, got ready. And my husband is scuba certified. And he said, I would really love to dive with the turtles. Well, usually I almost drowned when I was younger. So I have this fear of the water. So typically I'm in the boat with a life jacket on or I'm sitting on the beach. And I thought, you know what, not this time. So I became aware of my fear of the water. I mean, it had always been there. But then I made a new decision. I'm going to be involved. And so my husband and my daughter and I all went and got scuba certified. And by those little steps, you start in the shallow end of the pool. You move to the deep end of the pool. You learn how to check your regulator and your safety gear, as I call it. Because of that, I was able to dive in Hawaii. And my son, so our whole family now is scuba certified. We got to dive with the turtles.
And how do you feel about water now?
I'm still a little bit scared, but and I use this mantra all the time when I'm stretching my comfort zone. Check your safety gear and then go in. And it has helped me a lot. In fact, the other day, you know, I try to stretch a little bit daily, if not definitely weekly. You know, find something that bugs me a little bit and stretch. And that's my mantra. Check your safety gear because you can do some stupid things. You don't want to
I do it all the time. All the time.
So, and when I was writing that chapter, people told me, what if somebody goes and hurts themselves and they try to sue you? So check your safety gear. Don't go jump out of an airplane without a parachute just because you're stretching your comfort zone. Check your safety gear. Decide what's the worst consequence and what's the best, and then go for it. If you can live with the worst, go for it. But so often we say that what if, and we make it horrible, but we never ask the opposite question. When I was leaving the schoolroom, I didn't have a single person other than my husband tell me, you're making a good decision. You go, girl. Nobody said that. You're crazy. You have tenure here. You can be here. You have a great job. You get 2 weeks off, and you're just crazy. But I checked my safety gear. That was my husband, was my safety gear. And he said, if you believe you need to do this, you need to do this. And I said, I believe I've got to help as many people because I'm tired of hearing in the news that someone else took their life when I have the tools that I can give them to end that. Awesome. I said, if I stay in the classroom, yeah, I'm helping people in the classroom, but now I can help people at my former school and so many more. Wider impact. Yeah, and that kills me every time.
Well, let's sit down, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the program that you have on Wisdom Window, and really who it can help, and kind of the steps that you take people through. Because I know your book is on there as well, and then you also have a program that people can download and have access to. So tell us about it.
So it's basically 4 steps. The first step is personal value, belief in yourself, realizing you're valuable. We covered that a little bit. The second step is perspective. That's how do you see things. When somebody says something negative to you, do you take it on personally, or do you say, thanks for sharing, that's their perspective? And then the third step is to have some planned responses so that when you're first addressed and you're in that freeze moment, you can pull out something that's already pre-made.
Practice.
Yeah. And then the fourth step is exactly that, practice. You practice in a safe environment, and then from there you move to a more stressful environment. As I said, we're a sports family, basketball mostly. And you practice on a basketball court. You don't practice on the football field.
Right.
And the same is true with bullying. When you are first bullied, that fear instinct immediately kicks in. You will never get rid of that. You just have to learn how to move through it. And so if you have some questions that you can use, then you're okay and you can move through it. And so the first thing, the planned responses, is either thank you for sharing, or a great one for a parent. This comes from Love and Logic, Jim Fay, Foster Klein, is, aren't you glad I don't believe that? As a parent, that is the most powerful phrase you could ever use for your child.
Aren't you glad I don't believe that?
Aren't you glad I don't believe that? But as a parent, our child comes home, so-and-so said I was ugly and fat. We immediately go into a long list of why we don't believe that. And the subconscious says, wow, mom must really think I'm ugly if she just spent 10 minutes telling me I'm not ugly. But if all you do is say, aren't you glad I don't believe that? And then you move on, then the child pulls up the validation. Oh, well, mom doesn't believe it. Well, yeah, and I did this the other day, and that, and that. And they pull up their own validation. As we talked before, personal validation is much stronger than outward validation.
One of the things I've been doing with my kids, and it's interesting that you bring up, loving your kids and your kids feeling like it. One thing I say to my kids nearly every day is I say, do you know I love you? And they say yes. And I say, how do you know? And usually they say, because you tell me every day. But then I say, how else do you know?
Yeah.
Oh, because you took us to get ice cream, or you did this, or you did that, and then I can get into their minds of what are the things that I do that make them feel loved, because you've got the love languages and everything. And for me, it's acts of service. And, and so of course I'm always trying to do acts of service because that's what we do.
Right.
But that's not necessarily theirs. And so I have to dig it out of them, like, okay, how do you feel loved? And but I love that. Aren't you glad I don't believe that? Or aren't you glad we don't believe that? That's
all you got to say. And when I first started using that with my son, as I said, he's 6'9". He's always been tall. And surprisingly enough, he was a target for bullies. And it was because
I wouldn't want to go up against him.
But if you think about it, it's a lose-lose for him, and it's a win-win for them because he's big. And if a little kid can kick out, beat up a big kid, he's tough. But if a big kid retaliates against a smaller kid.
Yeah.
The big kid's the bully. And he would get bullied all the time, and he would get called into the principal's office. And so we talked, and the first few times, no, Max, nobody. I'd go into this whole list, and then I realized, aren't you glad I don't believe that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so powerful for him.
Yeah. Well, because often when a kid is getting bullied, the parent wants to fix their kid.
Right.
How do I fix you from getting bullied? And I realized that that's the mode that I was going into.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of empowering my son, I was like, stop doing whatever you're doing to get bullied. What are you doing?
Right.
And I made up excuses where now I'm like, no, no, that's not who you are.
Right.
And shifting him to so that he feels empowered.
And part of the reason kids draw back, little kids have no problems. They have no fear. They're excited. They learn that, they just are voracious learners.
Mm-hmm.
But then parents, well-meaning parents, I did this myself, start to say, well, maybe you shouldn't wear that.
Mm-hmm.
Because orange and purple don't really go together. And I realized, wait a minute, my daughter just dressed herself. I am so proud of you. Then we would go to daycare or school or whatever, preschool really, and they'd say, wow, that's an interesting outfit. And I said, I am so proud of my daughter. She dressed herself today all by herself. That takes the pressure off of me, so they don't think I put that kind of combination on her. And it empowers her. Yeah, I dressed myself today.
Yeah, I have an 8-year-old she's a butterfly, and she wears whatever she wants, and I just, I just let her. I'm a little bit harder on my son because, he'll wear shirts that are like 3 sizes too small, and I'm like, how did that make it back into your closet? I mean, you know what I mean? You get rid of it. I'm like, it's not just socks that go missing. It's clothes that come back.
Yes.
It's T-shirts that you're like, I know that that's like 4 years old. It's too small, and I know I threw it away. So, So I'm trying to.
It was his favorite, so he found it.
So we've compromised, and I'm like, it's a pajama shirt.
There
you can
you
wear
go.
it as much as you want for pajamas, but when we go out in public, so it's fun. Well, thank you so much. I really want to encourage you to check out Bully Proofing You on Wisdom Window under Jeanie, Cisco, Meth, and take a look at it because I'm really excited. I want to read that book. I think it would just be so powerful for. Is it something that like teenagers can read or that you can read with your kids?
It is. It's written with a school. So a junior high could read it, a high school, also adults read it. The questions for the planned responses are directed for a junior high or high school student.
Okay.
But I teach the same program in businesses because bullying happens in businesses
it's
too.
Rampant.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. And so the steps are universal. You just have to change the questions that you're asking. Yeah. The reason you ask a question is because, remember when I talked about it comes from fear? People bully because of fear. They're not thinking, they're not processing, they're in their reptilian brain. If I ask you a question, we're raised from very, very young age to answer questions. So let's say we get to school and I'm walking into the school building and someone says, something smart. Oh, you look like a dork today. I say, oh, really? What time did you get here today? Right? You immediately have to think about that. And we're so programmed to answer questions that you immediately go, it's amazing. When I first started using it, because as a teacher, I was bullied. I worked at an alternative high. And so I have connections to every gang in the valley.
But sweet. Now we know who to call in case that ever is needed.
Exactly. But, kids would come in and say stuff to me all the time. What stupid thing are we learning today? And I would say, oh, what time did you get here? And they'd be like, what? And you'll see it. They'll snap. They go into process mode and they'll answer the question. You say, oh, cool, great. Have a good day and walk on by.
So answer a question with a question.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I've learned a great deal. I'm my mind is spinning a little bit and I would love to, my son's 11, so he's teetering, he's a tween.
Yeah.
Tweens are hard, like this year I'm like
so much going on.
Oh, there's just so much balls of energy and I'm trying to process us through it, and so, but I realized that he needs a little bit more where he feels like I'm helping him, mentoring him into crossing over into the teenage and adulthood. And so we're working on that. But I think if I were to read this book with him and say, okay, let's talk about this, you know, let's talk about what bullying really is and where it comes from, that will empower him, you know, to change his belief system around what happened to him when he was younger.
I think it will.
So,
There's a workbook that goes with it.
Oh, perfect.
And so you can, you know, there's exercises in there for him to do that he can easily do on his own.
Okay.
So, and then if you read it and say, hey, you know, and when you say, aren't you glad I don't believe that? Follow it with another question. What do you believe? Especially if you're trying to get him to transition. Let him start coming out with it, and don't judge it. Don't say anything. Just say, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate your honesty.
Okay.
And then it helps him go, oh, wow, I choose what I believe.
Awesome.
And because you can't be there all the time.
No. No,
I wish I was there.
You don't want to, because they drive you crazy and you need a break.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for joining us today. Check out Jeanie Cisco Meth on Wisdom Window, bully proofing you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.